Anthropologists often do a lot of counting, especially when they're starting their fieldwork, because numbers can give us clues about what we should be trying to analyze. These are some tables from a book written by an anthropologist in 1984 named Roy Rappaport. He studied a group of people in Papua New Guinea called the Tsimbaga in the 1960s. He wanted to understand the role the rituals played in maintaining the relationship that the Tsimbaga had with each other, with their plants and animals, with surrounding communities, and with the surrounding ecosystems. Now, to do this, he had to find out how much time people were spending doing what activities and try to figure out the effects of these activities. So, he tried to count the calories that people were taking in from their crops and how many calories they expended growing them. He measured crop yields, he measured how much food people gave to their pigs and what the pigs were used for. By doing this, he could start to get a sense of the relative importance that people placed on different aspects of their lives. So, for example, Rappaport saw the Tsimbaga keeping a lot of pigs.
I'm Peppa Pig.
By counting the time and calories that the pigs consume and estimating the calories that people were likely to get out of them, he saw that pigs didn't make a lot of sense to keep if they were only there to be used as a food source. But pigs play major roles in rituals that help to maintain many important relationships beyond people's need for food. One is that rituals involving pigs keep people in touch with the sacred. They keep pigs because they are needed for rituals that help bring their ancestors into their lives. That's why his book was called Pigs for the Ancestors. But these same rituals also do other things. They help to redistribute resources among people, reduce the frequency of conflict between them, and help protect the environment by moderating their impact on it. What Rappaport shows is that the people raising the pigs aren't necessarily always aware that they're doing all of these things. These things that people aren't completely aware of are called the latent functions of rituals. The opposite of latent functions are manifest functions. The manifest functions are the things that people know they are doing when they do something. With pigs in their rituals, the Tsimbaga know that they are reaching out to their ancestors. This is a manifest function of their ritual. The guy who happened to come up with these names was an American sociologist named Robert K. Merton. But the basic ideas are fundamental to anthropology. I think they're also quite obvious to anyone who has ever done anything. Everybody in this room knows that you pay tuition so that you can come to class and learn stuff. This is the manifest function of tuition. All of us also know that our tuition goes to pay somebody's salary, support families, and to keep the lights on or to buy ad space on a bus. But these aren't the first things that come to mind when we have to pay up. So these are latent functions. Latent doesn't mean invisible or unconscious. It means not as obvious as other functions from the viewpoint of somebody performing the function. Everything we do has some manifest functions and some latent functions. There are things that we know we are doing and things that are not as obvious, but that also are done by whatever we are doing. In Merton's view, the latent functions of things we do tend to work to help keep a society running smoothly and sustain a particular way of life. So there are 2 points here. First, the things that the Tsimbaga do with pigs, raise them, live with them, eat them, share them, shape their way of life and help to sustain it. Second, they're not completely aware of the roles that pigs and rituals play in sustaining their lives. The conclusion we can draw from this is that if we can understand the latent functions of the things we do, then we will understand something about the kind of society we live in and our role in keeping it going.
The opportunities here are limitless.
Now, if we follow Rappaport's example, we should start by counting what we do. Now, luckily, some of us have little things that count and measure our activities. Now, I don't know if Android has something similar, but if you've got an iPhone, you can take it out. You go to Settings and scroll down a bit to Screen Time, and this is what mine looks like. If you've got this feature turned on, your iPhone will tell you how many hours you spend on your phone each day, which apps you use and for how long, and how many times you pick up your phone and the number of notifications you get each day and each week. And I lead a very unhealthy life. As you can see, I spend an average of 7 hours and 31 minutes looking at my phone and my iPad combined each day. That's a good chunk. That's almost 1/3 of each full day. I'm a bit of an insomniac, so that you can see that if you scroll down, I'm looking at my phone from almost before 6 in the morning and then until 12 midnight, 1 o'clock at night each day. So if you take out the 6 hours that I'm apparently sleeping, then I'm spending a good chunk. It says 5 hours and 58 minutes, 6 hours. So 1/3 of my waking hours on my phone or my iPad. You'll also see that I spent a disturbing amount of time on Reddit. Apollo here is a Reddit client. In my defense, I do most of my work on a desktop computer, which doesn't show up in these figures. So there's probably another 4 or 5 hours a day that I usually spend making slides, writing something in Word, emails, reading articles, doing other things in the browser, but I still spend a frightening amount of time on Reddit. We can look at my day in a different way if we go down to the number of notifications I get. So it says that I get 129 notifications. I got 129 notifications today. Most of those were from mail, a few from WhatsApp, messages, and my calendar. But if we go back up to the week, then we can see that on average I get 397 notifications a day, mostly on Messenger, 1,000, on mail, 825 over the past week, a few on WhatsApp and a few on Apple Messages. That's 397 a day. So Rappaport looked at what people invest in pigs and what they get out of them, and found that they invest energy and get out many important things, including stable relationships with their ancestors. I put in a tremendous amount of time and attention into my phone, and most of that is with Reddit or mail and messages. So what do I get out of that? It obviously isn't calories, and I don't get paid for any of the time I spend on Reddit. So what do I get out of it? Does the time I spend on my phone give me a stable relationship with something, if not ancestors? Now think about how you'd answer this question. What relationships does spending time on your phone help you maintain?
Come on, no one has anything?
Maybe family or friends or work. I think many of us use our phones to maintain exactly these relationships. These relationships are all important to us, and many of us need our phones to keep them going. Makes sense. So how do we think of the second thing that Tsimbaga teaches us? We need to think about the latent functions of my interactions with my phone. What does me being on mail or messages or Reddit do? Now, let's keep this question in mind as we watch this next video.
I have a brand new slot machine. It is from IGT, and it's got new bonuses that are so much fun. There's even Cat Week bonus.
So this is Ellen DeGeneres. She's a very popular American talk show host. She's been in the news a little bit over the past year or so, so you might have heard of her there. She's, presents herself as one of the nicest people on TV. This is a video of her meeting people who are playing her new electronic gambling machine in Las Vegas. Now, watching this video, the thing that I noticed first is that this woman, even though Ellen is standing next to her handing her money, barely looks away from the screen. If Ellen weren't there, it's not hard to imagine her totally consumed by the machine, not looking at or interacting with people around her, putting money in the machine. Why should these players find Ellen's video gambling machine so consuming? Well, the obvious reason is that if you play them, you have a chance at winning a whole lot of money. Put in $1 and getting back $10,000 sounds like a really good reason to play. Kind of, but unless you're lucky or, I guess, good, you're not going to make very much money gambling. The chances of winning are absolutely tiny. The house always wins. So why do gamblers keep playing these machines? It's like the pigs. The time, energy, and resources that Tsimbaga invest in pigs don't make any sense if you're only counting calories. The time, energy, and resources that gamblers invest in these machines don't make any sense if you're only counting money. So, what are the other reasons? This is something that Natasha Dow-Schul helps us understand. She's an anthropologist who wrote a book on Las Vegas casinos and the electronic gambling industry. Now, in this case, it probably has to do partly with Ellen. By playing this game, people feel like they are playing with Ellen. And that's why people are so excited when Ellen actually shows up, because the fantasy that they're playing with Ellen actually turns into playing with Ellen. This is one of the manifest functions of these games, that Tsimbaga feel like they are with their ancestors by performing rituals with pigs. Americans feel like they are with Ellen by giving her gambling machine their hard-earned money. What's interesting about gambling machines is the kind of escape that they allow. Some kinds of entertainment might be about escaping from your ordinary life and doing something completely different. But gambling machines are about escape by intensifying certain things about our ordinary lives. In gambling, we do things that are very similar to the things that we have to do for work or for other things. But we do them in a way that's faster and flashier. Dow-Schul says that many people in North America, where she did her fieldwork, have to act as what she calls actuarial selves. By this she means that we have to manage our finances, our careers, our social relationships, and even our health in the way that corporations manage their own financial health and risks. They have to be constantly working to identify and manage risks to their well-being and be on the lookout for ways to protect themselves and make the best of the opportunities that might arise. In other words, they have to be constantly figuring out the terrain around them and making the best decisions. Now about this, I'm sure we can empathize. We have to make decisions about what jam to buy, what job to apply for, and what partner to pursue, or about where we put our money. There are lots of places that will give you lots of information about how to make these decisions, but in the end, it's often you that has to make the final decision.
Your money's not lying on your couch eating all your biscuits.
And some of these decisions have major consequences. We feel anxious about making them, and we can never be completely certain about whether we've made the best choice. But we still have to make them, because the next decision is going to be coming up almost right away. Gambling machines do the same thing, but they almost totally remove unpredictability. Players sitting at gambling machines are constantly making decisions, but there are only one of two possibilities: win or lose. The probability of winning is low, but you will be able to predict exactly how likely a person is to win. It's programmed right into the game. Gambling is supposed to be about games of chance, but you actually take more chances when you buy jam. Is it the right flavor? Will I like it? Will my family like it? What will people think if they see it in my cart? Is it healthy? Is it organic? Is it ethically produced? Is it a good value? And so on and so on. Electronic gambling machines make all these real-world complications and uncertainties disappear. All you have to do is push a button and wait to see whether you've won or lost. This is what Natasha Dow-Schul means when she writes that gambling holds worldly contingencies in a kind of abeyance by immediately resolving bets with the quick press of a button, admitting gamblers into an otherwise elusive zone of certainty. In other words, it is a simplified simulation of the life of the actuarial self. What makes electronic gambling different from, say, soccer, then, is the kind of life that it simulates. Modern soccer dates from the 19th century. Electronic gambling is a very 21st century kind of thing. Electronic gambling is about very individualized decision-making work on a computer. So we could say that the latent function of these gambling machines is to play a part in turning people into actuarial selves. They get people used to making decisions, and they let people exercise and stimulate that part of themselves that has gotten good at making decisions constantly and quickly. This is related to another part of electronic gambling that makes it so consuming. It uses the same parts of our bodies as stereotypical office work does today. And post-COVID, it also looks a lot like how we learn, we socialize, and how we play. A good simulation has to feel close to the actual thing. Look at how she's sitting and what the gambling machine looks like. There's a bright screen, just like a desktop computer screen. There are buttons under her fingers like a keyboard, but instead of a lot of keys, there are just 2 buttons plus a simple touchscreen. Her chair looks like a comfy office chair. In fact, gambling machine designers used ergonomic studies of office chairs to design their own chairs. A good simulator feels kind of like the real thing, and the gambling machine kind of feels like an office computer on a desk, except noisier, more colorful, and with simpler icons and controls. And of course, simpler outcomes, win or lose. So another part of the latent function of electronic gambling machines is to stimulate our decision-making capacities in the way that many people are used to having them stimulated, sitting in front of a computer.
It's all about productivity. Our high performance mechanical switch.
If we put this together, then we can see that electronic machines are a kind of play that trains us in a very physical way to be better workers and lets us be rewarded psychologically and very occasionally financially for doing that work. Of course, there is another latent function here as well, and that is the function of moving money from the player's pocket into the casino's vault. From the vault it goes other places, the casino owner's pocket, the casino workers' wages, payments to suppliers, taxes, new construction, rebranding campaigns, and maybe a little bit gets back to the players. In other words, capitalism. So we have the manifest functions of electronic gambling machines, which are 1. To have a chance at winning some money, 2. To make players feel closer to Ellen, and 3. To feel escape and pleasure. In addition, we've been able to identify 3 latent functions of electronic gambling machines. 1. They help keep money moving from the player's pocket to the casino and elsewhere. 2. They help get people used to sitting and working at a computer. And 3. They help turn people into actuarial selves able to deal with constant streams of risk management decisions. All of these things are happening at the same time through the same string of actions. So, what does this add up to? What can we conclude? Think of it like a vicious circle, or if you like, a virtuous circle that connects people who are actuarial selves, electronic gambling machines, and computer-based risk management desk work to each other. Actuarial selves are used to managing risks in everyday life spent in front of a computer. They play electronic gambling machines that represent a simplified and more psychologically rewarding version of that kind of life and work. Playing those games accustoms them further to risk management, which makes them better actuarial selves. And they can go back to computer-based risk management desk work and their actuarial lives. Each part reinforces the other, keeping the whole system stable.
Big Sight, New, Hank, Coco, Big Sir. Y'all know how this shit go. You know, all eyes on me. Motherfucker, G. Roll up in the club and shit. All eyes on me. All eyes on me. You know what?
My guess is that few of us, if any, are avid players of electronic gambling machines. But does our analysis of gambling help us to think about our smartphone use? What are the manifest and latent functions of our smartphones? Let's think of one small part of smartphones: notifications. I get hundreds of notifications. The total number of notifications I received during a recent week was 1,850. What's interesting about notifications is that when one comes in, I don't know who it's from or what it's about until I take a look. If it's a work-related notification, like an email from a colleague, then I'm probably going to have to open the message, read it, and act on it in some way. Or it might be nothing. It can be hard to predict what I'll have to do, and what will happen if I tap on a work notification. On the other hand, if it's a notification from a game or a messaging app, then chances are I can put it aside, and even if I forget about it for a little while, I'm not risking very much. It's not going to ruin my week if I miss that there's some new Pokemon in the area or something. I don't know. My kid plays Pokemon Go. I don't. The point is that there are a lot of notifications. Some are relatively high risk, but others are low risk. Those ones I can choose to react to, or I can choose not to. One of the striking things about smartphone notifications is that it throws all of these work and play related notifications into the same form. They arrive in the same way and require me to respond, at least at first, in the same ways as well. It turns out that about 50% of my notifications are work related and the other 50% are play. That means every time I feel my phone buzz, I have a 50-50 chance of seeing something that I can react to without risking much, or of seeing something for work that I need to follow up on and carries more uncertainty with it. You're probably starting to see some similarities with gambling machines and office work. My smartphone is starting to look a lot like it combines an office computer and an electronic gambling machine. My phone lets me play and escape, but also work, using the same gestures on the same device. Some notifications are high uncertainty, like the office computer. Others are low uncertainty notifications, like the electronic gambling machine. What we've seen so far shows us that some of the manifest functions and latent functions of a smartphone are similar to an electronic gambling machine. I'll leave it as an exercise for you to think about whether there are other similarities or differences between smartphones and electronic gambling machines. Are all their manifest functions the same? Which are different? What about their latent functions? For now, let's jump to the bigger question. What kind of society is this smartphone helping to sustain? When I play an electronic gambling machine, it's pretty obvious that the money I put in it is going to the casino, and from there to many other places, as we talked about earlier. What about a phone? I pay Apple and Spark to be able to use a phone, but are there any other ways that I put money into my phone? I suppose I pay for apps and subscriptions, but is there anything else? Let's do a little math. Let's assume I need 2 seconds to read and react to a notification. Now, it turns out that the average person gets about 46 notifications per day, and this means I am an extreme outlier. But if we assume that about half of those are for work, as it was in my case, then on average a person gets 23 work notifications a day. If we use the average salary in New Zealand and think about how much paid time is used for responding to work notifications, we can calculate about 11 cents of each day's salary ends up as payment for responding to work notifications. Now, if the time spent on notifications is worth about this much to advertisers and app developers, that means each day a person provides about 11 cents of value to them by looking at their notifications. In 2017, there were 3.8 million phones in New Zealand with the internet. Let's guess that there are 4.5 million today, which seems reasonable. Multiply 11 cents by 4.5 million and by 365 days, and you get about $176 million. Compare this with the estimated size of the mobile advertising market in 2020, which was $161 million. Pretty close. We'd need more evidence to say for certain, but it sounds like whether or not you actually pay for anything, your attention, the 2 seconds you spend on your phone to react to a notification, is worth money. So if all of our assumptions were close, then we're starting to see a possible answer to the question, what kind of system do smartphones work to sustain? Earlier, for gambling machines, we said it was capitalism. For smartphones, it's capitalism, but a special kind of capitalism. One that values not just the money you throw into a gambling machine or spend on apps or subscriptions, but on how much attention you give your device. This is what some people have recently been calling the attention economy.
Here I am
Human attention seems to be becoming valuable, like trees, mineral ores, oil, food, cars, land, and other things that are bought and sold. People pay money for your attention. Look how far we've come. We now know something about the world we live in now by looking at the tiny little things we do each day without thinking. And we've been able to find it out by using a pretty simple set of ideas that helps us understand what people are doing in Papua New Guinea, Las Vegas, and New Zealand, and with pigs, electronic gambling machines, and smartphones. To finish up, I want you to try thinking about your phone and other things around you using the ideas of manifest and latent functions. When you use your phone, what are you doing? What kind of society is it in? There's a lot that we can learn from this way of looking at the world, including technology. Thanks for your attention.